You're listening to the LONGBOX CRUSADE podcast episode 45, featuring DCeased, War of the Undead Gods, issue 6, cover dated April 2023. Hello, and welcome to the 45th episode of the LONGBOX CRUSADE. I'm your host, Delvin Williams, aka The Dark Web. The LONGBOX CRUSADE is a podcast where each episode, a random cover month and year, is chosen, and then an issue is selected from one of the LONGBOX CRUSADE crew members' comic collection. Each episode, we will summarize, review, and reminisce about the issue, ads, and events of that time period, which was so long ago. Joining me for this episode, and they're going to be giving us their current crusades in under 10 words. Well, you know, you can get to 10. I'm generous host. I will let you get to 10 if you can, but 10 words or less. And we're going to start with Jared Albrecht, the yard sale artist, sometimes known as Death Row. He's a big fan of Prince. Prince, by the way, we're recording this on Super Bowl Sunday. So he's a big fan of Prince, and Prince put on arguably, to some, probably not Jared, the best Super Bowl halftime show of all time. And he's going to tell us his current crusade in 10 words or less. Jared, the floor is yours.
Okay, before I do the thing, I got to remind everybody that not only is it my favorite halftime show, but...
Thank you, Jared. That's 10.
I got back from Iraq like with 2 or 3 days to spare to actually catch that show over at Sergeant Cannon's house. So it was like a welcome home thing for me. Anyway, current crusade, 10 words or less, edit on Her Majesty's Secret Podcast.
I didn't count, but I'm pretty sure that made it. Hey, you want to tell us anything about that show? I'm giving you more words, Jared. You tell us something about that show that you're editing.
Sure, yeah. On Her Majesty's Secret Podcast is the other podcast network that the LBC crew here does a little work for. We recently recorded an episode where Pat was in charge, and he likes to talk about The Man from U.N.C.L.E. We talked about episode 5. And man, spoiler alert, we all loved it. If you love Man from U.N.C.L.E. and you want to see other people loving The Man from U.N.C.L.E., tune in. You can't do it yet because I haven't edited it yet, but I will have it edited, and that show will be posted Monday, not tomorrow Monday, but the next Monday. It'll pop up on your feeds.
No, I'll tell you what, no one was twisting our arms making us say uncle how good it was.
Nope, that is correct, Pat. And if you want to go and check us out on Her Majesty's Secret Podcast, MI6 Rogue Agents, we have discussed 4 other episodes of U.N.C.L.E. From the first season, so you can hear us talk about those too. Man from U.N.C.L.E. is a great series, and I'm glad Pat brought it because I'd never watched it before, so I'm learning a lot. We will move on. Since I brought up Pat, we will go to the founder of LONGBOX CRUSADE himself. We have him here, folks. He is live. He's ready. And since I talked about Super Bowl halftime shows with Jared, like Sister Christian has not done one yet, but I'm sure if they did, Pat would be front row in rapt attention ready.
I don't know if I would. I don't know if I could because, man, if you know how much the Super Bowl ticket right now is, like I heard it was like over $6,000 just for like a low level, the lowest of lows.
It is insane. One of my friends and jiu-jitsu buddies, Brian Reedy, he is there at the Super Bowl.
Oh, wow.
He also is the CEO of a sports company. So that tells you, the level that it takes to be there. I'm CEO of nothing. I'm not even CEO of my own house. So I don't have money to go to the Super Bowl. Anyway, Pat, your crusade, 10 words or less, sir.
Well, just like Jared, I am editing episodes and scheduling for February 2024. Did I make it?
You did, and I
made balloons.
I did something that made the balloons come up, and I don't even know what it was. So
it was almost like 99 rough balloons that I saw.
Almost. Tell us something. Tell us about one of the shows that you have edited. Give the listening audience a sneak preview of what's to come in Longbox Crusade.
Well, Delvin, I'm glad you asked. I am actually in the middle of 75% done with editing the next LBC Crew show, where it's a mystery. Someone dies.
Oh, no.
Professor Dark Web tries to find out who it was, but will they learn? I don't know. There's a safe involved, some masked guy, things like that going on. It's a pretty good mystery.
Yep. Well, you know what? I need everybody to come on, get involved until the mystery is solved.
Yeah.
And we will move on to the older, wiser Albrecht brother. Continuing this halftime show thing, they do a puppy bowl. They do a puppy bowl at halftime. They don't do a kitten bowl. So I can imagine how irate you are at that. But please, Jason, Weasel Skull Albrecht, get past that anger and tell us what your present crusade is in 10 words or less.
Back from Costa Rica, doing laundry and preparing for AFO.
Jared gives you thumbs up. I'm going to give you thumbs up because I get a pretty cool effect if I can get it right. And while I'm doing my cool effect, you want to tell us what's coming up on AFO, Jason?
Well, I know our advertisement says that we haven't done Chuck Norris, but we've done Chuck Norris, and we're going to do Chuck Norris again.
Oh.
So we're going to have a little Chuck Norris, and we're going to have a little, it's one of Pat's favorites, a little Megaforce.
And I wasn't invited?
No.
Who's in charge of that?
Not.
Who scheduled that?
Laurel.
Oh.
Yeah, it was Laurel.
Is Kathy on it?
Yep.
Oh.
Maybe since Kathy is live in the audience.
I'm just kidding.
I was going to say maybe y'all can negotiate a trade or possibly
get a pop in.
I did not mean to start a war here.
I did not mean to go for it.
Yeah, come on, Jason. You got to keep it, right, because we don't need no civil war. Don't start. I know. It was my fault. I was going to lead you.
You know what I do? Because it feeds the rich and it buries the poor.
Stop it. It was my fault. I know it. And so since I am going to take the mic back and talk about my crusade, and I'm going to tie it into one of the comments. Courtney Holland asked, "Hey, Delvin, are you going to lay the smackdown on?" And I'm going to key in on the word smackdown here. So my crusade right now is dealing with being a TikTok celebrity. What do I mean by that? So I was at WWE SmackDown on Friday and with one of my good friends, Dan Wilson. And he's like, I got us some good seats. And I'm like, okay. And got there and I'm talking about, I was young and the ring was young. I mean, it was right there. And we were right by the announce table. And so on TikTok, they released this clip of one of the wrestlers. He at the announce table, he poured water on another wrestler. LA Knight poured water on AJ Styles, since Courtney would care about that. And if you look in the background, a guy standing up looking at it, that's me. I was standing there,
cool.
And I was on TikTok. So I am officially a TikTok celebrity.
Like? That was blowing up on TikTok, y'all.
Yeah, I was sitting there oh.
Were you wearing your LBC shirt though?
No, it was wrestling. I had a shirt on that said British Strong Style. There is a wrestler, Pete Dunne, and that was one of his shirts. So that's the shirt that I had on, but I was looking, and if you happen to be on TikTok, you see WWE and happen to see that clip that happened now, you will find me on it. And so I was like, when my buddy Dan sent it to me, that's a trip. I'm trending now. That's me, trending superstar. Delvin the Dark.
This one's for Pat. This is like the time when George Costanza was eating the sundae at Wimbledon.
Yeah.
And the camera.
Just, he's really going to get that one. He's going down on it.
I'm lucky. I don't think at any point where the camera was on where I was like, no, I wasn't digging my nose. It was itchy. I wasn't digging in my nose. I don't do that. And so thankfully not. So we've all covered our crusades. And let's keep going. Everyone, we invite you to be a part of the show by submitting your comments and memories, which will be featured on a future show. Reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube at LONGBOX CRUSADE. And you can leave a voicemail anytime at 707-532-5269. That is 707-532-LBOX.
Pick up the phone.
In stereo, we hope you come along with us on this crusade to read them all. Now, before we get started with this episode issue review, let's take a quick podcast promo break. We will be right back.
Hello, soldiers. I'm Jared Albrecht, the Yard Sale Artist, codenamed Death Probe, and I'm here to give you your orders to join me and my elite podcasting squad for G.I. Joe Chronicles. Who makes up this elite squad, you may ask? It starts with my right-hand man, Pat Sampson. Tell him your codename and specialty, Pat.
Well, Jared, I'm glad you asked. My codename is DJ Christados, and on G.I. Joe Chronicles, I specialize in G.I. Joe comic books, Marvel, Devil's Due, IDW. We cover them all. But there's so much more in the G.I. Joe Chronicles universe, and that's where our first sergeant comes in. He's Jim Mill. Sound off with your codename and specialty, Jim.
My specialty is everything else G.I. Joe. I'm going to talk about some comics too, but I'm also going to look at the G.I. Joe property from lots of different angles, including, but not limited to, the toys, cartoon, puzzles, train sets, bed sheets, Halloween costumes, you name it, and there's probably a Joe version of it, and I'm going to let you know it exists.
You forgot to tell the troops your codename.
Oh yeah, codename Weasel Skull.
I don't think you can have that one. I think it's taken.
Dang. How about codename Weasel Skull?
Strangely enough, that's also taken.
Orsted.
Oh, that's like a beautiful name, man. We could be cosmically...
Okay, never mind. I got it. Codename Dark Web.
No.
Pop Pop Hiss?
No.
Pimp Destro.
No.
Hot Thing?
No.
While my battle buddies get that ironed out, I invite you to join us for G.I. Joe Chronicles. You can listen to it on its own solo feed wherever podcasts are found, or catch it under the LONGBOX CRUSADE Network umbrella. We look forward to seeing you at Fort Longbox.
Yo, Joe! Okay, how about Jim the Joe Junkie?
Maybe.
Welcome back from the break. Today's adventure from the Long Box is DCeased, War of the Undead Gods, issue 6, cover dated April 2023. The credits for this issue are provided by Mike's Amazing World. The title of the comic is DCeased, War of the Undead Gods, issue 6. Very original. The publisher was DC. Cover date April 2023. On sale date February 21st, 2023, with a cover price of $3.99. The editor was Ben Abernathy. The writer, Tom Taylor. The penciler, Trevor Hairsine. The inker is Andy Lanning. The letterer is Saida Timofonte. The colorist is Rainier Barreto. And cover credits, there were two covers, I believe. The first cover, the one that's probably up as I speak, was done by Howard Porter and Rain Barreto. There was a variant cover that was done by Jeff Spokes, Francesco Mattina, Kale Ngu, and Sun Kamunaki. And I want to show that cover. And by the way, this cover is the reason why we're doing this whole thing. This cover, I have that cover here. My good friend and workout partner, Manuel McCall, he liked the cover and he's like, this is cool. And he wanted to give it to me. So at being a good friend, he was at his local comic book shop. He saw this cover, he gave it to me. I had not been able to pick up the book and read it. And when y'all told me, Delvin, it is your turn to do a episode of LONGBOX CRUSADE, I first, of course, went, and then I like, hey, you know what? Instead of like looking up, some issue of Spider-Man or whatever, let's do something new and original. And I brought this to us. So thank you for the cover and the comic, Manuel. That's what good friends should do. And we will proceed with Jared's cover description.
Well, all right. I should preface this by saying I'm doing the cover description of the cover A, the basic one, which is the Howard Porter cover. The streamlined DC logo in the top left corner is white, but there's no corner box because they don't really do corner boxes anymore, and that makes me sad. It's made clear that this is number 6 in an 8-issue miniseries. The title font of DCeased War of the Undead Gods looks like a stenciled spray painted on white. The main action is busy. The center point of the cover is a mother box that was manufactured by Microsoft because it seems to have the red ring of death. And it's almost in the hands of Darkseid, who's apparently a Yellow Lantern. And he's fighting a version of Brainiac, I think. And also Batman's jumping into the fray. And did I mention this cover's busy? Back to you, Delvin.
There was a lot going on, that's for sure, Jared. And even though this is a quick read, we'll get into that. There's a lot going on in this issue, too, especially since we did it in the middle of things. But I'm jumping ahead of myself. We got to talk about the cover. Pat, what do you think about this cover?
This cover is busy. Did anybody mention that before?
No, first time.
It is busy, but I like it. You guys know me. I'm a colory kind of guy on the cover, so this has got a lot of stuff that's really popping to me right now. And nowadays, 2023, the coloring that can be done now is just so amazing. The artwork as well is good as can be. So I don't know who a couple of people are on there. Like, I didn't know that was Darkseid until Jared said it, but reading it, I was like, well, that doesn't look like him, but now it does. And I didn't know that was a mother box. I knew that was Batman, but pretty neat looking cover.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is probably a reason that we should probably cover more DC comics, eh? Hey, comrade? But, let's see. Can I? Yeah, I think that's Brainiac, and that's definitely Darkseid or Darkseid, depending on who's pronouncing it, because I have heard it both ways. And it's good old Batman, and that is a mother box. So you were all correct, Pat. Jason, what do you think about the cover?
It's busy. I'm just kidding.
Dude, that's completely original. No one has said that.
So Howard Porter, to me, that's one of the reasons why I got back into comics back when Howard Porter was penciling the Justice League back in the, late 90s, early 2000s time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So right away, you kind of got me, right? I take a look at this. I'm like, I believe that's Howard Porter. And the mother box is interesting because the mother box is right in the center, and that draws my attention. That's the one thing. When I see the mother box, I know that we're going to have Darkseid Apocalypse. Something is going to be happening here on an epic level. Then you look at the Darkseid. He's kind of on the bottom, and he's kind of clashing. He's got the dark of the Darkseid and the brightness of the Yellow Lantern costume. So that kind of starts a little questioning in me. Brainiac, I think that's like maybe the Brainiac is it from the Brainiac from the Legion? I'm not sure. But then you got Batman, and Batman's, your main cell. Okay, Batman's in the book, I'm in. So a lot going on here, but the way it's laid out kind of draws me in, if that makes sense. And I'll stop there because Jared already said that the show's going to run 45 minutes longer if I keep babbling on.
I'm in his head now.
He's in my head.
He's in your head.
Kind of like a zombie.
Zombie. Yeah, Jared, our resident artist, what do you think about the cover?
It's busy. All right, now that we got that done,
what's number that for?
I actually prefer the alternate cover, which is the one that you had, which doesn't really have a lot. It's a black cover with a Flash logo with a Flash, I think, there in the lightning bolt, and that's about it.
That is a cool cover.
It's not as busy. It's the main cover that we're talking about is fine. It's Howard Porter. It's very colorful. It's very jumbly. I don't know. We don't score them on this, which is good because I wouldn't know what to score this thing. It looks really thrown together. It's like they said, hey, here's a few iconic of things from the DC universe, and I want you to chew them up and just spit it on this here cover, and that's what you get. And I don't necessarily mean it's bad, but it's just a little weird. I don't know. I color's pretty. I'm out.
Okay, and I'll finish. If anything, to me, like one of the things that, well, I wouldn't say we're sticklers on it, but it often comes up when we say, hey, this cover does reflect what happens in the book. This cover does not reflect what happens in the book. This cover does reflect what happens in the book. There's a lot of chaotic stuff going on in this book. And so accordingly, this cover is chaotic. So I do give it credit for that. It does seem fun. And reading a few comments, Courtney Hollins gave it a 4. Well, we don't rate things on the original LONGBOX CRUSADE, but we do on Amazing Spider-Man Chronicles, and that's a 1 through 5 scale. And she would give it a 4 out of 5. Says it's strong. She would buy it. AU Kathy says, to me, it would be a lot less busy if the background was a solid color. So I would say mixed feelings about it. So, but overall, I mean, it kind of matches the panel here, like mixed feelings as well. Like, I don't think anyone is like, oh my God, this cover is bad, just that it's busy. We will move on to the synopsis. The title, as you may have heard before, is DCeased, War of the Undead Gods, Part 6. And this synopsis was taken directly from previewsworld.com. And it goes a little something like this. The Galactic War has reached Earth 2 in the battle to save the last bastion of hope. With an unstoppable army of infected new gods, yellow lanterns, and more, does humanity have any hope of survival? So we're going to talk about the book and what we thought about it. We only have one time to go around, folks, so you better get all your comments in that first round, because if you don't, there is no second round. And I'm not even going to ask you have anything additional. I'm just going to cut it off. Snip, snip. We run a tight ship around these parts. Jared's going to show us how tight.
Oh, all right. What do I think about the story? Just fair warning, I'm going to be the boat anchor on this one, I think, of everybody, because here's my process when I get this right. Let me preface that by saying it's fine. It's good. But Jared has certain things when he opens up a book and they're like, oh, we're going to talk about Jack Kirby's New Gods. I go, like, I don't dislike him. It's just that corner.
Wait, okay. I got to ask you then. New Gods, X-Men.
I prefer X-Men.
Okay.
All right. But with a small exception, I adore Mr. Miracle and Big Barda from the JLI. Yeah. And then that kind of coming with that is Oberon. Outside of that, the whole Orion and Granny Goodness and all that other stuff, I'm just like, it's just never something I got into. So, like, pretty much I've just told you everything I know about the New Gods. The only other thing I know is when Darkseid shows up, take it seriously. He's like the Thanos of that universe. He can go toe-to-toe with the Man of Steel. He's put Superman through his paces. He's a tough cat, right? So I was like, I saw him on the cover and I was like, okay, I know Darkseid and he's got the power of a yellow ring. That's interesting. And then I opened the book and I start reading. It says New Gods. And I go, and then a couple of pages later, it goes Earth 2. And I was like, son of a, I was like, no, that's my least favorite thing about DC continuities. They're Earth 1s and they're Earth 2s. And I read every issue of Crisis on Infinite Earths. It still makes no sense to me. It's beautifully drawn. but like the whole multiple Earths, I was like, oh man. So my investment in it, I say all that to say this, my investment in the issue, in the storyline got to be very, very low. But I mean, I still read it and I was like, okay, I get what's going on. I liked the, impactful thing of who became the Spectre at the end. And I'll let someone else reveal who became the Spectre at the end. That was cool. So I will take my time to complain. I will not ruin the punctuation of who was the Spectre at the end. I'll let somebody else to do that. But in the end, I thought it was, it was fine. I fully recognize that it's my personal bugaboos against the New Gods and the whole Earth 2 thing that are holding me back. If these are things you are into, if you're into New Gods and you dig the whole multiple Earths thing, by all means, this was a cool book. Just wasn't tailor-made for me.
Jack Kirby made the New Gods, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And the LSD was prevalent in the 60s and 70s, right?
There might be some things that go hand in hand. It's always been weird to me.
Those are two unrelated questions. A couple of comments. Kathy says that she would agree with all the Earths. It made all of the CW shows so confusing. We might talk about some of those CW shows because there was a house ad for The Flash that somebody might be bringing up and added up later on. I only watched a little bit of The Flash, and I was actually very, very surprised / impressed when they brought up the concept of multiple Earths. I was like, that's a bold move, because sometimes if you got that quote unquote casual listening audience, people are like, Earth 2, Earth 3, there's only one Earth. What are you, what? I'm so confused. So yeah, I do understand where you're coming from, Jared. And we're going to move on to Jason. Jason, what do you have to say about the book?
First off, I'm going to agree with Jared with the Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think anybody who says that they understand that is lying to you, the same way that anybody that says they understood Inception is lying to you. Kind of the same principle. So I kind of felt a little bit the same way. I read the DCeased series, okay? And so this is a series within a series. So I knew kind of sort of what was going on. And I've collected the DCeased War of the Undead Gods, but I have a habit of, if I read a miniseries, I want to read all of them. So I kind of, for the purpose of this show, I jumped into this one. So I didn't really quite know what was going on. I guess I'll say the one thing that I really liked, and I'll be the spoiler for Jared, was when Alfred becomes the Spectre. And I thought that was kind of a beautiful moment. You know, Alfred is kind of the father figure to both Bruce Wayne and Damian and all the folks in the Bat family. And as such, he swallowed a lot of rage in order to help develop these young men into the heroes that they're born to be. And it just gets too much for him in this book. And boy, that made so much sense to me. And so I just, hats off to the writer for understanding the character, or at least tapping into my understanding of the character to say that this makes a lot of sense. So that was kind of the highlight of the book for me. And I think that's a good place for me to stop and hand it off to Pat.
Before Pat takes over, I just wanted to give you an amen, a second to that, because man, that moment in the book is powerful and memorable, to where Alfred lost Leslie Tompkins, and not only did she die, but in that zombie-like effect that clearly has been going on through this storyline, she was infected, and she was turned from a peace-loving, do no harm doctor to just this snarling beast of rage. And that plus Damian Wayne, who is Batman, being basically having his head nearly knocked off by a god, that just caused him to lose it. And even though he was a man with no powers, he stood in front of a god and just raged. He was so angry. And that anger got this newly untethered Spectre to relate to his rage and attach himself to Alfred. That was a very, very powerful moment. You got to think, when they come up with these alternate storylines like this, you got to know that Tom Taylor's like, man, I wish I could do this in the real universe. But since I can't do this in the real universe, I can do it in this fake universe.
Yeah, well, it makes a ton of sense, doesn't it? Oh, I never would have thought of that in a million years. So hats off to Tom for making that connection.
Yep, absolutely. Pat, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, I do have a few things. And first of all, I'll rebuttal to Jason's, if you understood Crisis on Infinite Earth. Jason, I understood it.
Liar.
I understood Crisis on Infinite Earth. What it's about is, well, let me tell you what it's about.
Okay.
There's a crisis, and it happens on infinite Earths, like a multiple of Earths. And what happens is they figure out this crisis, and it happens to all these worlds, and then it just becomes one world. And that's the Crisis on Infinite Earths. So I understood it.
There you go, Jared. You were confused for years.
That just Occam's razor it for us.
Yeah, he just put a spotlight right on it.
What they did is they took the Crisis out of the pool, and then they just put it right in with the Pope, and they stirred it all up, and next thing you know, it's all one world. But no, I was confused like you too on this one. I was like, what world is this? What's going on? And I'm glad you guys were just talking about that, because I'm like, well, is this affecting the normal? And the Alfred that was there, he was from the Earth 2 right? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
This whole thing apparently has plagued the entire DC Earth 2 universe.
Okay. So I was trying to really understand all that. And I'm glad, Delvin, you also said earlier on why you chose this book, because I was like, wow, why has he chosen 6 out of 8? Well, I'm going to have some questions for him to see if he read 1 through 5 to tell me kind of what's going on in the story.
Nope. Sure didn't.
And I felt like Jason in this as well, too. It's like, okay, well, I'm thrown into this thing, trying to read it and trying to figure out what's happening with it. And I think that's one kind of a bad thing with nowadays storytelling that's going on. You know, this is 6 of 8. So, you know, it's going to be a trade down the road. It's going to be 8 issues. And it was a fast read that it was like, okay, well, you could have done maybe the story in 6 issues, but you're trying to, you know, pad the trade a little bit more of what's going on. I still don't understand a little bit. You know, they tried in the beginning or so to kind of pull you in to make you understand, you know, hey, this is happening here, but we're on this world now. And why does Superman have a robotic arm? What's going on? Oh, that's Damian, not Batman. I'm like, whoa, I'm so confused in this thing. To me, is that a bad thing? A little bit, yes, and a little bit no, because I was intrigued and I wanted to find out from you, Delvin, what was going on in 1 through 5, but I can't. No. So if anybody out there listening or commenting, tell me what's going on in this thing. I want to know.
We got lucky. Jason said that he read it, so Jason can help.
Oh, did you? Oh, maybe I glossed over that part.
I read the original DCeased, in which it was Darkseid that sent some sort of plague to Earth that started this zombification of folks.
Zombification.
That's good. And so basically, yeah, so a lot of the heroes got turned. And so it became almost like Walking Dead for those, but with DC characters.
Yeah. What it reminded me a little bit of when I started reading it and kind of knowing, okay, well, they're getting turned to, like you said, some zombification being done. I was like, did they do this already in Blackest Night? You know, kind of reanimating the dead, kind of a little bit.
So the difference, though, is that they were affected by the Black Lantern. So, so that was imminent, like in the Black Hand, who got So, like that, there was clearly an out as far as a reversal, and it looks like there was an out for here. Like one of the, I like Jared, I can piecemeal a few things. I know, I don't know if Darkseid is the one who released this, but Darkseid often has that anti-life equation. It looks like the anti-life equation was mutated somehow, and it basically infected the entire universe, like with this zombie-like effect, to include the New Gods, and that wound up plaguing the entire universe of Earth 2 as a result. That's just doing a little bit of piecing together.
I think he sent it, and I'm going back in my memory a little bit, so I could be wrong, but he sent it back to like Earth 1, and I think they escaped to Earth 2 in order to escape the zombie virus, for lack of a better term. And I'm guessing that somehow the virus found them on Earth 2 or continued to mutate outside of Earth Prime. I don't know. Does anybody know in the DC universe, is there one world now, or
if there was at one point, they, after Crisis of Infinite Earths, in fact, the main purpose of Crisis of Infinite Earths was to collapse everything into one universe.
It was a Crisis of Infinite Earths, and they
shut up.
And so what they wound up doing, it's about 15 or 20 years later, is essentially opening back up the multiverse. Because at the time, DC had if they wanted to tell some offbeat story, they called it Elseworlds, and they would have the DC Elseworlds storyline. Because this just happened anywhere, and but they did open it back up. I think Final Crisis maybe was the name of the storyline. They opened it back up again. So like,
that's right.
They now have the 50. So that was one of the impetuses of the new 52 of DC Universe. Is 52 different universes that happen in DC. The main one, Earth 1, is basically where all of the heroes that we know and love as they presently exist.
I think the main point here is if Manuel's going to give gifts, he really needs to select simpler. So
here's the thing. Manuel is big and strong, and he can beat me up. So I can't question the gifts that he gives me.
No, I think it's a great gift, and to have it, and for those of us that aren't up to the current day stuff, we may have fallen away and just have that love for the old stuff. And man, there's so much old stuff out there that you haven't read that that we like to go through here, mainly on the Longbox Crusade. But getting into the new stuff too isn't a bad thing. It's interesting.
No, it's a fun thing for us because we don't do it that often.
Yeah, just to see how things have changed a little bit.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? We usually are dealing with things that are like 40 years in the past. And so, like, it's funny how we all are a little bit stunned and shocked about dealing with a comic book that's essentially present day. It is fun, to turn things on its ear a little bit. Before I move on, there's a comment by Courtney, and she says, in the TV shows, the Guardian comes down and picks the heroes to fight, like Superman, Supergirl, Arrow, Flash, and some of the heroes die. They also essentially covered a Crisis version on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched some of it, and it was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, for them to do essentially a watered down version of the comic book and put it in a TV budget, that was a bold and ambitious thing for them to do. So I give them a world of credit for trying like that. And to go get on my soapbox only slightly, man, I appreciate the bravery, and they basically drew directly from source material. And while they didn't replicate it exactly, they did as best as they could. And they get like 2 thumbs way up from me for that. Jason, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I remember that because what really tickled my tummy feathers was when Kevin Conroy came on as the Ultimate Universe Batman. I thought that was super cool.
And we should ask the question about the art, though. The art was by Trevor Hairsine. And I know, I think Trevor Hairsine's like an event guy. Didn't he do Civil War? I think he did for Marvel Comics. I want to put, he has done one of those. I think he's an event guy because I don't think he's ever been on any major book, but he does events. Anyway, Trevor Hairsine did the art. Let me scroll up because I already forgot the name of the inker. The name of the inker is Andy Lanning. Oh, yeah. Andy Lanning is usually paired with Dan Abnett. So it's good for him for branching out out of his comfort zone. But what did you guys think about the art in the story? And we will throw this one to Jason. Jason, let's start with you.
Well, Trevor Hairsine, he hit the map, I think, in the early 2000s with this comic book called Class War. And Marvel kind of scooped him up after that when they were doing the Ultimate titles. And I remember him doing like Ultimate Nightmare or one of those Ultimate books.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think he's kind of an event guy. And he's really well known for drawing a lot of kinetic action, right? And I think we saw that like in that fight between Spectre and Mxyzptlk, I think that was.
Yes, it was Mxyzptlk. Yes.
Yeah, and he just like there's a lot of energy, like that punch that god landed on Batman. Boy, it hurt my face when I saw that. So that's kind of what he's really well known for, is kind of drawing these event books. I think you're spot on there, and it works really well. I think in this story. A story like this really kind of calls for somebody that can show this just godly level of power. And I think Trevor does a really good job with it. And I'll just end it there.
And he definitely conveyed a bleakness as well. I mean, the book started where it's like a universe, Kilowog of the Green Lantern Corps. His planet was completely destroyed, and it unfortunately killed billions of people. Pat, what do you think about the art?
I do think that it was very serviceable for this issue and series. I think the layouts were really done well. Again, coloring, man, just the coloring on these things are really cool to see when it all comes together like that. Like Jason was saying, to get somebody that can do these events where you got, different superheroes and he gets the looks down, it made me believable on these. I was really interested to see all these different characters that he was putting into him, and just the action, as Jason said, was well done.
What do you think, Jared?
I wish I'd read it, then I would know, but I'll guess. I will say this. I will say that he had to cover a multitude of characters, and I never had any questions about who was who. And that's impressive. Looking through it, I'm scrolling through it, even as we speak, I get a very Herb Trimpe vibe from this guy. We've talked about Herb's really good at differentiating characters. Probably not taking forever to get his art turned in, not super flashy, but really solid and well done. And as I've gotten older, we've talked about this a million times. We respect that more and more. And, when we were teenagers, we were like, it's got to be McFarlane. And now we're like, it needs to be solid and on time, That's what we learned to appreciate. But I'm looking at it, and he does a lot of smart things, as Pat was saying, with his layout. He picks and chooses where he's going to use a lot of background detail and very little background detail. And he's really smart with where he's picking the lack of background, because A, it's going to save him time, but B, he's using it where it makes sense from a storytelling panel point of view. Like when Alfred rages and his eyes turn green, when he drew that, all he really had to draw was Alfred's rage and a half a fist. And then the colorist is going to come in and add he might have done some of those line effects, but the colorist or anchor is going to add a lot of what's going on in the background, which looks like a lot, but really it's just a few lines and some color work at the end of the day. He uses almost no background when Batman hits the ground after the face punch. And that's smart because it makes that moment impactful. It really, again, the color sort of adds a smoke effect in the background, and that's it. So he's really, he knows the shortcuts, and there's nothing wrong with shortcuts. Okay. I need people to understand that these pencils are trying to make a deadline. Picking your spots for shortcuts is very important. And he's picking impactful moments and using them well. So overall, I hadn't really heard of the guy or seen any of his stuff. I mean, I haven't really read comics since about 2006. But this guy, very solid work. And and he had to cram in a wide story. And apparently he was the guy for it, because I didn't have any problem following what was going on visually.
Quick note to anyone listening and who raged at me saying Steve McNiven did Civil War, by the way. It was not Trevor Hairsine.
Oh, that's right. That's right. McNiven.
Yeah. I couldn't remember who did it, but I knew it wasn't Trevor.
Yeah, my trivia brain just popped up and came up with that. So, take that. And speaking of popping up, Jared's about to pop up now and do his segment of this Longbox Crusade.
That's right. It's my responsibility to remind everybody that if we went to a con and we ran into Trevor and he said, hey, it's the Longbox guys, and I have all the original pages, which at this day and age is probably done digitally, and he doesn't have any pages at all. But you know what? We're going to pretend that it's all still pencils on paper. And he said, hey, you guys can have any page from this book that you would like. What page are you going to pick? Anybody who locks eyes with me already knows what they're going to pick. Pat, you look confident. Pat.
I do.
Pat, what do you
Jared,
got?
yes, I do, Jared. Thank you for asking. I am confident. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jason.
Fantastic.
Oh, just kidding. I did pick mine already. I'm going to pick the page that has Kyle and Superman in it. I'm a Green Lantern fan at heart. And so just seeing a Green Lantern with Superman just kind of hanging out together, I like that page.
Excellent job, Pat. Delvin.
Both of my picks would have had Spectre on it. So I'm going to pick the last page where Spectre merges with Alfred. And heck, Spectre, taking on the qualities of his human host, even has Alfred Pennyworth's mustache. If you know,
you're not going to leave that behind.
I just noticed that. So that was really cool. And then, come on, just the saying the last words of the issuer, and then I ended a god. He punched through the new god's head, y'all. He was mad. He was angry. What's up, Pat?
when you say that, though, it does make it interesting because you don't find out who's actually talking in the beginning, right? You have the commentary in the story that's going on, and then you realize at the end, oh, it's Alfred who's saying this now. All the beginning comments.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great catch, Pat. I didn't even think about it.
I just thought about it right now. So
over to you, Jason.
I think I'm going to pick the battle between Mxyzptlk and Spectre, where Superman comes in, gives Mxyzptlk that uppercut, and leaves the opening for Spectre to drive that dagger into Mxyzptlk's stomach there. I thought that was a cool little battle sequence, 3 panels, and you don't even need the text on that to understand what's going on. So I'll choose that one. Good battle sequence.
One of the smart things they did on that panel was add the lanterns with their ropes and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
to give it scale, because at first I was like, is Spectre and Mxyzptlk both very tiny? Or are they both very long? Like, it had scale, it had the perfect scale by tossing those lanterns in there. And I was like, oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah, that's a good and a good example of what we were talking about with Trevor Hairston. You see, like on that top panel, when Superman hits him with the uppercut, there's like a little blood coming up that busts out of the panel. It like splashes onto the white of the frame. I think that's really, really cool.
Awesome stuff. You know what? I literally could pick any page of this, but there's not one that stands out to me above the others, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think they're all real solid. I'll just pick the part where Alfred becomes the Spectre right before Delvin's page, and Batman's like, what? And old dude is like, what? And then Alfred was like, punch a hole through your face. That happened on Delvin's page. Mine ends at second, what? So I'll pick that one. They're all great.
Yeah, man. It says something to me. Like, even the page before that, like, I don't think I've ever seen Alfred just look so angry. I mean, just like he is just screaming and tears are streaming down his face. Like, and he's like, I haven't felt this angry since Bruce Wayne lost his parents. Just, man, that was a powerful page. But
and they used some famous covers there for the backdrop when he is getting angry. If you look in the background, it's the Mazzucchelli cover from the original Year One.
Year One, yeah.
Ooh.
And then the other one, I can't remember where it's from, but I've seen it before, where they're all laid out like that.
I appreciate all those great catches, my friends. I'm going to have to ask you guys to think way back, just like into the deepest recesses of your brain. And I asked the question, does this bring back any memories, from all the way back in April 2023? I'll go first since I actually had a thought that popped up. The thought that I had was April 2023 is my birth month. I was born in April. And I had made the decision a few months prior. Like a good friend of mine, Jeremy, told me about how he had hooked up with a dietitian and had like really good results. And he's like, dude, like if you want to do the same thing, it's like you really just need to have skin in the game and pay the money to do it. Because like I think I was pretty good on my fitness and staying on top of that, doing my weight training and then doing jujitsu. But the one thing I really didn't have under control was just the diet part of it. And so I paid for a dietitian. His name is Adam Pecoraro. He is The Fit Adam, if you ever want to find him on Instagram. Like, dude was worth every penny. He got me on a very good diet plan, and I'm still on today. I saw like really good results from it. And so I was really happy that and he actually wound up reaching out to me. I commented on, like, I've been following him for like a year plus, and he reached out to me just randomly. And it was one of those things I kind of took as a sign, like, you know what? I was dragging my feet on this. I was kind of being cheap about it. I didn't necessarily want to spend the money to do it. And he reached out to me and we started having a conversation and I did it. And I was so glad that I finally took that extra step. So I have a really positive memory from just a few months ago in April 2023. Anyone want to take the next shot at it?
I won an all-you-can-eat Buffalo Wild Wings challenge. Nah. Just kidding.
I was going to say, how was it? How many wings did you eat? Were they good wings?
No, I'm teasing. Man, I can't remember what I was doing in April. I was working. I was still working. No, I guess in all seriousness, one of my crusades was I started with the gym myself and just continuing through that. So April, I was still working on it and still going strong, doing my routines, up in the, keeping track of the weight I'd be pushing, the speed I'd be running on that treadmill. That's right. And just keeping at it. So fitness, I guess, has been kind of on my mind a little bit as well.
All right, here, Jason. Pat, Jared, well, which one? Pat is going off of mute, and it does not have to be about fitness, man. You can talk about something else.
I'll talk about a little bit something else, and might be, I'll try to be positive and a good thing. This time a year ago, as you guys know, some stuff happened with my wife, and so 2 months in February. So April is about recovery time going on, and I just took a look back at our calendar. We do have a calendar, guys, that we use for scheduling our stuff. Well, it's true. I just looked it up. I want to just say the positive thing about it at the time was just the support from you guys, from the Crusader Club members, from everybody at the time of what was going on with my wife. I remember just having that and having something to do gave me a chance to just feel kind of normal a little bit. And so I do appreciate that at the time and still do right now. So really love it. So thank you, guys.
Heck yeah. That leaves Jared. You should talk about, I don't know, like when you went to Taco Bell and it was good, just as a balance to what Pat just said.
Yeah, I was going to say something stupid. Don't worry.
That's why I figured I'd go first.
Yeah.
Last, not leave it on a downer.
Not a problem. No, I did the same thing. I went back and I looked at the calendar to kind of see what we were doing LBC wise, and a couple of things jumped out at me. Sort of a 8 months ago time capsule. Jason and I recorded an actual face-off where Speed took on the Getaway and won. And we did a Comics Console Crusade with Joe, where we talked about Arkham Asylum video games. And that was a lot of fun. That was back in April. This is when we recorded, folks. You guys got it later, but this is when we recorded it. And I think most importantly, back on April 2nd of 2023, I hosted a podcast editing tutorial session for a few people who were interested in becoming podcast editors. One of which was Jim Meal, who really latched onto it. And now he's part of the LBC extended family with G.I. Joe Chronicles Outpost and became an absolute asset and friend of the network. And we're so happy to have Jim. So that's going to be my big one. That would be the moment that we pretty much recruited and locked in Jim Meal.
All right.
And sure enough, he just popped up in the chat and said, "Hey, that's me." And as it turns out, he wasn't just a snack; he was a full. You know what? That will bring us.
Wait! I gotta admit, because Kathy mentioned in the chat that she was there too. She was there. Jason was there. But yeah, Kathy was there too, and of course, she's also been an asset to the network. So yeah, good times.
Good times indeed. And that brings us to the end of this part of the show. Got a comment or question? Send us an email at contact@longboxcrusade.com or make a comment on Longbox Crusade on X, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. You can call us and leave a voicemail that we just might play on the phone. Leave us a message at 707-532-5269. That's 707-532-LBOX.
Pick up the phone.
And in a universe that is, basically about falling apart, I'm sure landlines played a very important role. So make sure to leave those messages, and we will be right back.
And action! It's Fade Out. Hosted by film fanatic Rob Kelly and a roster of special guests, Fade Out will examine the final films of Hollywood's brightest lights, part of the Fire and Water Podcast Network.
Welcome back from the break. Let us continue with the show. Now it's time to scan through the featured ads of DCeased War of the Undead Gods number 6 for the top ads that stood out to us in a segment called Add It Up.
Add it up.
Add it up. Add it up.
We're going to talk about the ads that stood out to us in the show, and we're going to start with Jared.
I can do that. Okay, it's a lot of house ads, or at least DC related, with their one movie, one TV show, and a bunch of house ads. I'm going to pick Clayface, The Clayface ad seemed the most interesting to me. The art on it was incredible. Look at that art. For those of you who are watching live, that's just really good. And, it's basically, I believe it's teasing to some sort of a mini series kind of about Clayface and maybe his history or whatever. That's what the vibe I get from it. And it looks like something I would be interested in. So, yeah, Clayface. Why not?
I can tell you that I haven't read Batman in about a year plus, but as of the last Batman I read, Clayface is a part of the Bat family.
Oh,
all right.
So there is that. And while you are recovering from stunned silence, we'll move it over to Jason. Jason, what ad stood out to you, man?
I'm going to pick the DC Ruby one just because it speaks to me as a dad still trying to connect with his 20-plus-year-old son. We still get together every Saturday. He watches some old stuff like old Buck Rogers television series. Jared's watching Airwolf. I'm watching Buck Rogers, old Gil Gerard as Buck. And then sometimes, when it's his turn to pick, I'll watch like Full Metal Alchemist or some of these anime type stuff that he enjoys. And Ruby's one, and DC and Ruby is kind of like a mashup between stuff that I like and stuff that he likes. So that kind of speaks to me a little bit.
Do you know anything about DC Ruby, Jason?
I don't. I actually asked Drake. I was like, "Is this something you'd be interested in?" And he was like, "I don't know." So I don't know a whole lot about Ruby. I know he was into it. There were a couple of voice actors at a local convention we went to not too terribly long ago, and he was excited. I bought him a Ruby like bag that he wanted, kind of like a carry-all type satchel thing, and he had it signed by several of the actors, so he was big into it. And so that's what it stands out to me. The DC stuff, the Justice League folks, that obviously sings to me, and Ruby's a character that, or a group of characters that he likes. So there it is.
Auburn Elvis comes with an assist and says, "I know it's red, white, black, and yellow, the main colors of the chicks in it."
Well, I can see that right there.
Yeah. Well, you see, it's a crisis.
I know. There's like an unlimited number of arts, and it's something big thing going on.
And there are no vowels I noticed in Ruby either. I
didn't know what that was, so I'm glad you kind of gave a little more information on what it is. So
me too. I did not know. Pat, you got the mic, man. Go for it. What ad stood out to you?
Well, Delvin, you mentioned it earlier on in the show, and I am going to choose The Flash, as it is the final season of the CW's The Arrowverse version of The Flash. It is a show that I was watching from the get-go. I kind of fell away as later on it got kind of like, oh man, this is a little out there a little bit, but still a decent show, and I will go back and finish it just to see how it ends. But I really enjoyed the Arrowverse, and then when Flash came in, and I like Flash a lot. My Flash is Barry. Everybody's got their different Flashes out there, and so I was really interested in this Flash. And one of the things I remember a lot too is what happened in the summertime when my son was home from school. He'd be binging the Flash to catch up on the older episodes of it. So I'd come home for lunch, and there he would be sitting on the couch just binging. So I'd be able to sit with him, and we'd be able to kind of talk a little Flash and DC stuff, and kind of introduce him to the universe a little bit more. And so it was a good bonding time.
Awesome. I didn't watch a ton of Flash. Miranda watched a decent amount of it, and I laughed because I'm like, every time I would sit there and watch it with her, the plot of every episode seemed to be Flash beeps up the timeline.
Yeah. But he does, though. I mean, that's what he does.
Yeah, it's like, bro, stop running. Like, go to just get a normal life. Like, use your powers as selfishly as possible. Like, make quick runs to Taco Bell. Become your own Uber. Just leave the timeline alone, man. This time I'm gonna go back and rescue my mother, and it's totally gonna work so fast. So yeah, leave it alone, Flash, and he didn't. And that was the plot that I got from The Flash. Icon versus Hardware. That is the one that I'm going to pick. And here's the funny thing. Like, and Jared says this all the time. Like, I didn't read it, and I've never read any Icon or Hardware, and I feel kind of bad about that because both I know that these characters were Black created, and they are iconic in their own right. They're a part of DC Milestone comics from back in the day, and this is exactly what Icon versus Hardware is. It's a celebration of the Milestone universe and its 30-year anniversary. And I look at it and it made me kind of sad because I'm like, I know 30 years ago, I was more of a mainstream guy. Today, I am still more of a mainstream comic guy, but I feel like I either need to find this or just look at it because there's probably some pretty awesome characters that I just never got a chance to check out. So like that was, I saw it. I think that the house ad for Icon versus Hardware is fantastic. That is a great house ad. And it's doing exactly what a house ad should do. You look at that and it's like, I'm missing out. This looks good. And so like I saw it and I'm intrigued. And so I might need to maybe for another Longbox Crusade episode, bring this and we can talk about some Icon versus Hardware maybe, or at least like maybe find some old milestones because the market for back issues are still, piping hot because people like going back and picking up these issues up. I guarantee you there's some pool or long boxes somewhere where I could find some Hardware or some Icon and learn a little bit more about the Milestone universe because I'm interested.
I think it's fascinating that they leaned on Icon and Hardware, and I remember those guys from Milestone, but I know I'm not telling anybody anything I don't know. The big breakout from Milestone was Static Shock.
Static.
Yep. And they didn't use him in this ad at all. And I was like, well, that's bold to use the lesser. Like, I feel like the ad was made for like me. Like, I felt like I was the only one that remembered these characters. I was like, well, okay. But so I guess it's kind of kudos to them for not, leaning on Static the whole time.
If I remember
Hardware.
If I remember correctly, Jared, they did revamp Static Shock for a little bit because you cannot. He was popular. Everybody's heard of him. I think they did.
Brought him into the DC universe. I feel like they brought him into the main universe, but I could be wrong. I might be thinking about like cartoons or something.
Me neither. Pat, we interrupted, man. What were you going to say?
Oh, I remember Hardware. I kind of didn't.
Yeah, I mean, there's a more out of shape version of him. He was called Software.
Yeah.
I had to get it out. I went in and get it. And I even paused, like it would have been deflated. Anyway, a couple of funny funny comment from Auburn Elvis who said, every new Flash story is that meme of the guy sweating over pushing the right button and both buttons are labeled Destroy the Universe. Oh, that's... And Courtney just adds as a good advertisement and transition point. Again, if you're not in a chat, we are an awesome group of friends. Come say hi if you're lurking. So to anybody listening to this live stream, heck yeah, tell a friend about it. To anyone listening to this when it comes out podcast form, she's also correct. We would love for you to come along with us on a live stream and tell your friends about it as well. If you have a comment about this segment of the show, let us know about it. Email contact@longboxcrusade.com. Comment on Longbox Crusade on Facebook, Twitter X, or Instagram page. You can call us or leave a voicemail that we just might play on the show. Leave us a message at 707-532-5269. That is 707-532-LBOX. Oh, you already said it quickly. I was like, we can go past it, but Jared was Johnny on the spot. Or I guess I should say Jared on the spot. We should continue on to the next segment called Way Back in Time.
Once again, it is time to take another revealing peek back into history.
What famous date shall I set it to today, Mr. Peabody?
April 2023.
Got it.
On April 25th, Jamaican-American Grammy, Tony, and Emmy award-winning calypso singer Harry Belafonte. He did the Banana Boat song, y'all. Thank you, fellas. He was an actor of Buck and the Preacher, and he was a human rights activist. Harry Belafonte. He died of congestive heart failure at the age of 96. Rest in peace, Harry Belafonte. We'll go clockwise order. Jason, go next.
Oh gosh, I was looking at this one and trying to figure out people that I know here. I think I'm going to go with on April 27th, German-American politician, mayor of Cincinnati of Ohio, 1977, and television tabloid talk show host Jerry Springer died of cancer at 79, and I was not the pallbearer.
Jerry.
I tell you, I've been lucky. I've been to 2 live recordings, or not live, but I've been to watch Jerry Springer live. I've been in the audience on 2 shows.
Have you really?
Yeah.
That's
It was
crazy.
recorded in Chicago, so we got a group of people. We would go drive down and make it a day or 2 and watch Jerry Springer live. It's fun.
Are you the father or not the father?
That's Maury.
That's more information.
I remember Jared and some college buddies. We got like Jerry Springer like too hot for TV, and it's because it was going to be so racing. All I remember from that is there was some segment where the guy was talking about his like girlfriend or whatever wife is like, she's a nutty psycho, nutty as hell. That is appropriate of nothing. Jared, what comment do you want to read?
Well, I'm a humongous Harry Belafonte fan, so you ruined my day. But
Jared.
Yeah.
Day. Oh.
Yeah.
Daylight comes and you want to go.
I just want to go home. But all right. April 16th, Broadway's longest running show, Andrew Lloyd Webber and Charles Hart's musical version of Phantom of the Opera, directed by Hal Prince and starring Laird McIntosh, substituting for what's with all the details, Pat. Anyway, it closed at the Majestic Theater in New York City after 13,981 performances and 7 Tony Award wins. I didn't know that it was closed. That sucker ran forever.
Yeah.
And if you need a sheet music sketch of the Phantom drawn on sheet music from that Broadway show, go to www.theyardsaleartist.com.
The Phantom of the Opera was a CD that I would put in at night because my daughter wouldn't fall asleep when she was a little baby girl. She wouldn't fall asleep. So then we would put on the Phantom of the Opera at night and she would just kind of slowly fall asleep to it. So sad to see it end.
If you have an
You don't have to throw away the
one
CD.
more of these, I'm kicking you off the show.
Well, Jared, I do. I remember one time on April 29th, country singer Willie Nelson and me got together and we did. Well, no, we didn't do anything together. I asked him for a light and he said I didn't have one. And the next thing, and anyway, but on April 29th, country singer Willie Nelson hosts his first of 2 nights. Man, 2 nights for this guy. And he's 90th for his 90th birthday concert. He's 90 years old and he's having a party for 2 nights. It was him himself at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, California. Some of the guest performances.
I bet there was a bowl involved.
See, real quick, Pat still has a comment to finish, but I was going to say, you know how you knew that his story was like he was telling about him and Willie was a lie? It's like Willie Nelson didn't have a light. Willie Nelson didn't have a light. Willie Nelson got a light.
Right.
Like, he got a lighter on him somewhere. All right, Pat, comment, continue.
Well, he just had a couple of the performances that were there were Lyle Lovett, Neil Young, Snoop Dogg. You all know Snoop Dogg. Of course, why wouldn't Snoop Dogg be there? George Strait, Roseanne Cash, Chris Christopherson. Oh, Chris Christopherson, man.
Catch you at a bad time.
Nora Jones, Chris Stapleton, Beck. Oh, even Beck was there, man. I bet you he brought his 2 turntables and his microphone to that one.
That's where it's at.
Yeah, where it's at. Tom Jones. It's not unusual for Tom Jones to be there at all. Ziggy Marley were among there. So, yeah, lots of fun there.
Man, Chris Stapleton. Woof. He can sing. I just want to put that out there. That man, just love his voice. I mean, not that Willie Nelson isn't a legend in his own right. Heck, Willie Nelson was old when, again, Jared and I were in college. And yeah, Jared and I, we ushered a show that he put on at Auburn. And that old coot was up there for 3 hours straight.
I was like, I want to go home. I want to go to bed.
3 hours straight. That man did not leave the stage. There was no long protracted breaks. He just played for 3 hours. Like, I don't know what it is with like the older musicians. It's like by the time that they get older, it's like, man, like I'll just put on a pair of I'll put on some Depends and I'll just keep going. I ain't leaving this stage. So yeah, there's that. Thank y'all for all the comments. And we're going to go to the top 3 movies for April of 2023. Jason, you want to start?
Oh, you know I do.
Oh, he wants to start so bad.
I want to start too.
Action film face-off champion, Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, limited re-release, still raking in $316 million. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh.
They got my money.
It's almost like, Star Wars has a cult following or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Few diehards left.
A few. Jared, number 2, please.
And continuing with a commentary on modern filmmaking, in at number 2 is another re-release of Lord of the Rings: Return of the King at $379 million plus. Man, I'm not a big Lord of the Rings guy, but I like the third one. I saw it in the theater with Jason in Germany back when it was new. And I just think it's fascinating that these re-releases are just killing it. And you know how good that is for the studio? It's already made. It's just like, hey, remember this? $379 million. Ka-chinga.
Pat, number 1's yours.
Coming in at number 1, it isn't a re-release. It is an actual brand new movie that came out that year.
I don't believe you.
Believe it.
Jared, did you watch it?
I actually did, and it was outstanding.
Yeah.
Then I don't believe you. I don't believe that it's new.
I did not see it at the theater, though, if that makes you feel better.
I haven't seen it either, but it is the Super Mario Brothers movie. And I've heard it was really good.
It's outstanding, Pat. You should definitely check it out. They did it was really well done.
I didn't watch it. Wouldn't mind it watching it. I just didn't, make the effort to go. And I know that Jack Black played King Bowser, and
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt played Mario.
Yeah.
And Jack Black did a song called Peaches, Peaches, and apparently it has the same melody and rhythm of "Never Gonna Give You Up" by Rick Astley. He rickrolled everybody with that cover of Peaches, apparently. So, I don't know, but it was good. And I've seen a few memes from it that seem funny, so I wouldn't mind watching it at all. A comment from the audience, Jim Neal says, I waited until it was on streaming, watched it with my kids. It was good. And Chola and Helica Fetty Wolf adds, it was a good movie. My kids consistently sing Peaches. We are going to move on to the top 3 songs according to Billboard at the time. And I was lost, Jason. We are in the wilderness together on this one, y'all. I know I've heard of all 3 of the artists, but I am very, very suspect on any of these songs. Anyway, the number 3 song was "Kill Bill" by SZA.
The RZA and the Ghostface Killer.
SZA.
No,
is it really? I was seriously related to RZA?
Not the RZA, not Ghostface Killer. It's SZA. I'm pretty sure SZA's a woman, and that's
yes, she is. And
back to deck. Oh, sorry.
I know you don't. I know she doesn't run because you never run with SZA.
No.
I might kill my ex. Not the best idea.
Okay, no.
His new girlfriend next. How'd I get there?
What, Pat.
SZA. Yeah, the SZA.
I mean, you knew it and I didn't, so I can't.
That's why we call him the DJ. I mean,
indeed. Jason, you want to do number 2?
Sure. It's called "Last Night" by Morgan Wallen.
All I know Morgan Wallen is that he's a country music singer.
No way, it's our last night. Last night. No way, it's our last night.
I was going with the age one. Last night.
He's a country singer though. It's got a good country vibe to it.
With you.
All I know is that Morgan in German is morning. So having a song called "Last Night" by somebody whose name translates into morning, it's interesting. Yeah.
I have nothing comical to add, so I'm just going to pass it to Jared for the number 1 song.
I guess Pat knows this one too, guys. Number 1 is at least a performer I recognize. It's Miley Cyrus, and the song is called "Flowers."
I can buy myself
flowers on the wall. Nope, never mind.
Quit singing different songs, Jared.
You don't bring me flowers.
She recently won I think she recently won a Grammy for that song.
So all I know of that song is it apparently was kind of a response to the Bruno Mars song, I Should Have Brought You Flowers. I don't know if you knew that or not, Pat.
I did not. No, I just know of this song, and it's actually a pretty decent song.
Well, I think we've learned that Pat has a subscription to Teen Beat.
And I'm not going to ask
Tiger.
why. Agent Kathy says that, yes, it did win her a Grammy. So
yeah.
There you go. Congratulations, Miley, on your Grammy that none of us old heads have never heard of.
Pat apparently knows all this stuff.
Except Pat, who is hip.
I was watching the Grammys this year, and since I was on there, and so was Miley.
So while Pat is hip and he's with it and he's going to start doing the Macarena, that brings us to the end of this part in the show. Now let's get to the feedback part of the show called Crusader Comments. We are thrilled to kick off these comments with special shout outs to our Crusaders Club members. These are the fine folks that have joined our crusade. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. They enjoy priority seating as podcast guests, early access to special long box episodes, voting to help determine show content, backstage access to live recordings, and so much more. You have no idea. Just so much more. These are the folks reaping the benefits and giving some much appreciated support to the show.
And Helicafetti. Wait.
Nope.
Wait.
Yep.
I don't know what to do.
I know.
Jason's been gone. This is news to him.
What? Okay. Welcome, I guess. Alan W. Wright. Oh.
And Helicafetti Wolf, who took time to join us in the chat.
Oh.
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 Auburn Elvis in the live chat.
Oh. I got confused. Bill Beer.
Finally, back to have it make sense. Braxton Underwood.
Clinton Robeson.
Captain Entropy.
Clark Westfield.
Dave Battlewagon Collins.
Ezra Gallo.
Gary V.
Gene Hendricks.
Gerald Green.
Heinz K. In the chat.
Jason Keene.
Jason Lady.
Jeremy L.
Jim Jarman. Hope you like Jim Jarman too.
Dale.
Jimmy comes and he wants to sell some toys.
Joe Thomas.
John Watson.
Josh Strickland.
Candace Ward.
Kathy Bright, MVP. Also in the chat.
Matt and Lissy Paso.
Mark Ross.
Maxwell Traver.
Miranda W.
P.D. Devons.
Paul Hicks.
Rick from Jeff and Rick Present.
Rob Morgan.
Samantha Maney.
Sean Urbanski.
Spidey 67.
Spreadsheet.
Steve Cronin.
Tim Price.
Tony Pennington.
And Toronto Cop. If we missed anyone on our list, we apologize. Please keep in mind that we record these episodes well in advance of release, so if you're a recent addition, we should be adding you soon, but still, just let us know we missed you by sending an email to contact@longboxcrusade.com and we will get it straightened out. As a reminder, you can become a Crusaders Club member by heading over to patreon.com/longboxcrusade. For as little as $1 a month, you'll get access to the amazing world of the Crusaders Club. We invite you to come check it out. But if you don't have any extra money lying around, we understand times are tough. How about going to leave a review on whatever platform you're listening to us on, or giving us a YouTube subscription? A like or subscribe goes a long way. And be sure to join us here for our live episodes as well. We are going to talk about Longbox episode 42, y'all, where we discuss Deadpool 44 from June 2000. I'm just going to quickly read over the social media shares and retweets. We got them from Easy Rooster, Coffee and Comics, Fan Film Fridays, Doc Strange, Nathaniel Devon Master Sanford. That is a distinguished name. That's all one name, folks. Nathaniel Devon Mason Sanford. And Fan Comic de Paraguay. Any comments, Pat?
No, I did that section and I went and looked and we got likes and shares, but no comments. No one wanted to talk with us.
No one wanted to talk with us. It was the all Auburn episode, all Auburn all the time. Like, I mean, in the background there was like, you know, the Auburn fight song and everything. Like, I'm happy to sing it like now.
Auburn Elvis didn't even leave a comment.
Auburn Elvis didn't even leave a
Kathy.
comment.
Betrayal.
Van? No, nothing. Just ridiculous.
You know what, though? What you could do, Pat, is remember we got a handful of Crusademus voicemails from Tim Price. Just play one of them here because we got to get through these things. He sent us a bunch of Crusademus.
He did.
voicemails.
He did. Yeah, Tim.
Did he? Oh, what a prince. I hadn't heard from Tim Price on the internet in a while. I hope he's doing okay. Yeah.
We'll pretend that Pat just played one.
Well, hey there, Crusaders. Tim Price, you know, that guy who's been leaving messages on the voicemail. Anyway, we're talking about day 10 of Crusademus. You know, I never picked up Air Boy, but boy, I've heard good things before, and wow, I did not know it was Charles Dixon and Timothy Truman on it. So I definitely need to give that a try. I'll keep a lookout for it. And you know, this comic is kind of sort of adjacent to a comic I've thought about bringing to Crusademus before. So, you know, maybe next year we'll see how it goes. All right. Anyway, happy holidays, Crusaders.
Oh, Tim.
Good point, Tim.
Thanks for being a Crusademus kind of guy, Tim.
Thank you.
He is very much so. Well, as for one final time, everyone, hold on, let's make sure I'm not a liar. Yeah, okay. For one final time, everybody, you can call and leave us a voicemail that we'll play on the show right here. Leave us a message at 707-532-5269. That's 707-532-LBOX.
Pick up the phone. Pat. No SZA for us, Pat.
I can pick up the phone by myself. I can dial the digits.
You can say anything, and I believe you.
And just in case you guys wanted to know the phone number on Earth 2, it's XOBL235707. Thank you to everyone for the likes, shares, follows, and comments. We truly appreciate your friendship and help in spreading the word about this podcast. And y'all, we made it. That is the show. Be sure to check out the website, longboxcrusade.com, where posts will be made for journaling this crusade. I want to thank my friends, Pat, Jared, and Jason for joining me on this episode. But before we go, let's find out where the listeners can find y'all on the internet. And we will start with the yard sale artist himself.
All right. I am at Yard Sale Artist on X, Facebook, and Instagram. It's all at Yard Sale Artist. You can check out my artwares at www.theyardsaleartist.com. You can check me out at your local Auntie Anne's enjoying a hot pretzel.
Sounds delicious. Jason.
Well, you can find me at Jason Albrick on Instagram and on Threads. I also enjoy a good pretzel at Auntie Anne's. So join me. If you want to have a West Coast pretzel at Auntie Anne's, we can meet up here.
West Coast pretzels, served with left hands only. Pat.
Well, Delvin, I'm glad you asked. You can find me on the Twitter at Christatos01, and you can also find me on the Clash of the Clans as DJ Christatos.
You brought it back. You brought that Clash of Clans.
I'm bringing it back.
You haven't brought it up in like 3 years.
I'm bringing it back. Come and find me on the Clash of Clans, DJ Christatos, and if you want, you can join the LBC Crew Clan.
Is it named LBC Crew Clan?
Yes.
Nice. You can find me on Twitter, DE_RAY1977. You can find me on Instagram at Delvin Ray. We'll love to see you. Thank you for listening, and we hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Longbox Crusade. Got a comment or questions? Email us at contact@longboxcrusade.com or leave a comment on the Longbox Crusade Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter page at Longbox Crusade. Until next time, take care. And please join us for the next episode as we continue on the crusade to
Freedom!
The intro music is provided by musical genius Joe November.
Check out his SoundCloud at JOSEFLIM99. You won't regret it.
All songs, song clips, and characters discussed are copyright of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended. We are just fans that like to share our love of comics.
Outtakes.
add it up, add it up, add it up. See what you got. You got to add it up. I got a host.
We have
Who
to ask
won?
him. Billy D.
Billy D.
Won the Secret Society Supervillains paperback.
Nice.
Not just Billy D, but his nuts as well.
Yes.
Whoa. Whoa.
Hey.
Congratulations, Billy and Billy's nuts.
They're delicious.